9 to 10 p.m. Monday night on Liffey Sounds. The world you don't know. The world you don't know. 9 to 10 p.m. Monday night on Liffey Sounds.
Now, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. You're very welcome along to this week's edition of The World You Don't Know. With myself, Mick O'Connell. I've a great show lined up for you tonight. I have a guest coming on now in a couple of minutes. I've got a gentleman called Mark Bajerski. He's someone I've been aware of for the last year, mainly through the Richie Allen show in the UK, which is a show I've mentioned here quite a few times. Richie Allen is a guy from Waterford. He lives over in Manchester, and he's got an absolutely fantastic radio show over there called The Richie Allen Show, and I'd recommend it. You can get him online, just Google Richie Allen, and his website will pop up and you can listen to his show. I think he's actually on now. He does be on from 8 to 10 most nights of the week. One of his good friends on that show is a guy called Mark Bajerski. Now, Mark is I suppose you could call him a spiritual healer. He's probably one of the most positive people I've ever come across. He just exudes happiness and positivity. And in the world that we live in, I mean, this show is called The World You Don't Know, as you know. And most of the subject matter that I discuss on this is of a negative nature. I mean, I talk about the New World Order and, the plan for our global enslavement and stuff like that. And whether it's true or not, there's enough evidence out there that points in that direction. And it's the kind of stuff that I bring to you because the mainstream media won't bring it. All they will bring is bullshit, propaganda and lies and negativity and tons of it. I mean, you just have to see the aftermath of the US election when Donald Trump got elected. What's going on in America now, the amount of liberals now who are hating Donald Trump voters, which is ironic in itself. I'm not even going to get into that. But what I was very shocked about and not surprised about was the backlash from the American administration against social media and their assertion that social media and some, what they termed fake news websites, sort of caused Hillary the election. Don't mind the criminality or any of that sort of stuff, or Iraq or Afghanistan or any of that. It was social media that caused the election or fake news stories, which is bullshit because here's the thing. They published a list over the last few days of websites around the world that they claimed were responsible for putting out fake news stories. And it was websites like InfoWars, democracy.com, websites like that, truther websites who are putting out good information, not lies, but good information out into the world of social media. And this is what I think caused the election backlash in the United States, was the amount of people who are clued in now because of social media. There's a massive awakening going on, folks, and that's why there's so much negativity in the world, and it does drag you down. I've said this on my show many a time. We're energy beings. We're spiritual beings having a physical experience. And if you learn all about energy and how you can apply that to yourself, you can change your life for the better. I mean, one prime example, and I will cite him on this show many times, because in this country he's an absolute inspiration, is Conor McGregor. You just have to listen to Conor McGregor talk about how he got to the top. He attributes most of his success not just to working out every day of the week in the gym, but to positive thinking, to actually believing in himself. So that's what the world needs more of. It needs more and more people to actually believe in themselves. Anyway, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to dial my guest in, Mark. He's waiting in the wings. I know he's online. I was speaking to him earlier on today. I had a brief conversation with him on Skype just to check the signal and stuff. So I'm going to bring him in now and we'll get this interview underway. He's a wonderful guest, folks, so sit back, relax and enjoy a bit of positivity for a change rather than a negative show, which I usually bring. But as I said, most of the news that comes out of the show can be quite down, I suppose, for want of a better word. Anyway, I'm going to go straight to my guest. Good evening, Mark.
Good evening. How are you?
I'm very good. Listen, you're very, very welcome onto the World You Don't Know show. It's an absolute pleasure to get you on. And I'd like to just, before I do continue, thank Trevor Evers from Awaken Aware in South East Ireland for setting this up. So thank you for that, Trevor. Much obliged. Good evening, Mark. How are you?
Oh, feeling absolutely wonderful tonight. I've got my Barry's tea ready, all ready for this lovely chat tonight. Oh
no, we're up in Dublin. We don't drink Barry's tea up here. It's Lyons' tea we drink. So you're not in good company now. You've spoiled the whole interview.
Damn.
No, I'm only joking. Yeah, the Barry's tea is alright. Good cork cup of tea. It's good Irish tea. So that'll set you right up for the night.
Spanish tea, I promise you that.
So listen, give me a little bit about your background. I know you're from Huddersfield. Is that correct? Yeah.
It is. It's correct. Yeah, I'm from Huddersfield. basically a young lad who grew up just like any other young lad in West Yorkshire, just doing his best with life. And I suppose back in the days when we grew up, we played in the park. We didn't have iPhones. We didn't have all that we have now, that kind of
technological distractions.
It's deeper, I think, to be honest. I think it's deeper than the distraction. I think there's an underlying darkness attached to today, this morning, I was in a cafe and I saw a little 2-year-old boy fixated on an iPad, and the mother and father was talking to one another, and the little boy was just fixated on this iPad. And I've got to tell you, my heart just sinks. It absolutely sinks to see when you are awake and aware of what's going on, the hidden agendas that you can see in plain sight. It is heartbreaking, dear friend, to see. And what do we do? You know, do we say to the person next to us, do you realize what this is actually doing to your child? It's restructuring the actual humanity within your child, but you can't do that. It is a force energy by going and tapping somebody in the shoulder, because they're not ready for it, and some people are just not ready at this moment to see it. But the people who are awakening to it can spread a message, and people like yourself who bring out these wonderful shows that maybe one person who tunes into this tonight is listening and thinks, you know what, there might be some truth in this. There may be something within this new technology which is a little bit more sinister than what we think is a good idea. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think telephones are wonderful when we need to communicate. Facebook's great to say hello to people and friends and spread a good positive message. But it also has a very dark side to it as well, which can pull us right in. So we're seeing this more and more. I don't know if you are or your listeners are understanding this, but
yeah, I do. I mean, it's something I've spoken about on my show quite a lot. Is the darker side of the technology now that we find in abundance.
Yeah, I mean, somebody was speaking about. I'd never even heard of it, but apparently there's an also even darker, sinister web energy where we look at Google, but apparently there's a very darker, sinister website that certain people go to, the dark web. And I've never even heard of it, but it absolutely frightened the living daylights out of me.
Well, I'll tell you what the dark web is. For, I suppose, research purposes, I know what the dark web is. I've been on the dark web, and trust me, it's the last place you want children to go. But the amount of things you can get, I mean, if you wanted to hire an assassin on the dark web, you can do that. And you can pay with Bitcoin, you don't even have to be traced. It is a dark, sinister place. I'm nearly sure most of the world's online criminality takes place on the dark web. It's a sinister place.
Obviously, you've studied it and you had to do the research, but for people like myself and probably 95% of the world would never even have known, because it's not part of our daily life.
No, it's not something you can Google either. You can't Google how to get onto. Well, you can Google how to get onto the dark web, but that's not how you get onto it. You've got to download particular software, and it's harder for children to get onto the dark web. It would take. I'm not saying it would take a genius mind to get on, but you need to know what you are doing. So it's not something that children would do, as opposed to a child picking up a smartphone and figuring out how to use it in a few minutes. This is a lot more complex. So, in that respect, I think children can sort of be shielded from it. But if somebody does want to use the dark web, yes, it's there.
It's a little bit sad, really, when we're coming to a point in life where we're seeing our children holding phones all day long and looking down at them, as well as us adults too. It's really pulling us into this very dark place, and we're actually losing touch with humanity. We're losing touch with ourselves, and There is always a positive to all of these things. And one of the things that I do notice is that at one time back in the early 80s, if a girl was to walk into a bar on her own, then there would be many fingers pointed saying, what on earth is that woman doing going into a bar on her own? But now a woman can quite happily go into a bar, pick a phone up and start playing on the phone, and people just accept that. So there is positives to everything. It's just how we use this technology, and we don't allow it to take over our everyday life, which you probably know that it is very addictive to a lot of us, i.e. Facebook. I believe that is really the web now. I think Facebook has taken over everything, and I think most people in general will have Facebook on 24 hours a day. It will be part of their everyday life. I mean, there are certain people who don't, and the fashion at the moment is not to be on Facebook, but in general, it has taken over the world web, really. Do you agree?
Oh, 100%. I think Facebook is highly, highly addictive. And don't get me wrong, I use it myself. And, you can spend silly amounts of time on Facebook just looking at crap, or you can choose to use it for the reasons you would use it, for spreading positivity, spreading a good positive message. That's the upside to Facebook. But as you said, the downside to Facebook is children do become addictive of it. Families in particular, I think the one thing Facebook has done, and I've noticed it over the last 10 years, is it causes more bloody arguments in families, and it breaks families up, it breaks friendships up, and you've got people who they're so pretentious. They're on Facebook thinking that they've got 700 friends. They think there's 700 people love them. They don't even give them a second thought from one end of the day to the other. You see people putting a post up and saying, oh, I've been off Facebook for the last 5 days, sorry about that, guys. Well, nobody even bloody noticed you were gone.
Yeah,
but people, they live their lives on social media, and it's sad really that people don't get out and, just meet each other on the street.
Well, surprisingly enough, we're finding now more and more that people are actually interacting when they're next to each other via the Facebook. So that's when it becomes very, very worrying. They're not even talking to each other.
I know couples who will text each other via Facebook. And don't get me wrong, I'm guilty of this offence myself. Just for convenience sake, like, I might send my partner a message if she's upstairs or something like that, or vice versa. But I know couples who will talk to each other through Facebook and they're sitting on the couch.
Right.
That's just nuts.
Which that in itself we need to look at and see, okay, well, there is something wrong. Isn't that right? And when we recognise that there's something wrong, we can at least now maybe start to do something about it. We can start to share a message of gentle, not too hard, but gentle messages. Look, there's always two ways, or even 3 ways of getting a point across, but doing it in a way that doesn't affect the person or offend that person at that given moment. Because nobody, in truth, likes to be told when they're wrong. It is kind of like the ego and the proudness within people, and it can upset and hurt people. And to be honest, many people out there do get upset and hurt, just by something said, and because they kind of take it personal, and they're saying, well, are you actually calling me an idiot? And so then you've got to be really, really careful of how you come across. And there are so many ways to come across to people, and my kind of way of coming across is more of a joking, light-hearted kind of manner rather than in your face, because nobody likes force-fed. Nobody likes being pushed and told what they should and shouldn't do. So I think, by just being a good person, by sharing the right information, by talking the right words, by being positive, people can then make their own judgment and say, do you know what, I'm sick of looking at all of these negative posts that are thrown in my face, and you know what, it's nice to have a breath of fresh air to see somebody spreading a little bit more love, and therefore they start to go down the positivity side rather than, and as you know really well now, that this sinister side of the web really has people pulled into what I call the darkness or the fear. And the fear is, you can see it every day on internet, and fear sells. And this is the problem. People buy into fear. In fact, I'll tell you something. I had a message this morning and last week, and probably 3 others with the same message. And I don't know if you've ever heard of a certain star or planet, whatever it's called. It's called Nibiru.
Yeah, Nibiru, yeah.
Okay, well, if I look back 10 years ago when I started this path, there was quite a few metaphysical gurus out there and scientists and many people who were selling the idea of fear through Nibiru. And I noticed a lot on the YouTube and social media that they were basically selling something, whether it was buying to Jesus Christ or whether it was buying to my new book. But I quickly was sucked into that very energy. And I can remember talking to my son about it and talking to my wife and saying, this is really serious. And listening to all these, metaphysical people saying now it's coming in 2012 and we're all going to, well, some people say it's the end of the world. Some were saying actually it's going to pass by our universe round here, and then all of a sudden we're all going to levitate. We're all going to be able to do different things. We're all going to a different consciousness. And then there was a lot of people spreading real fear. I mean, really scary stuff. Well, what are we in 2016 now?
Yep. And Nibiru never landed on us in 2012. It was supposed to land on the 21st of December, the end of the world, the end of the Mayan calendar. And I think looking back at that, and I think we were all caught up in that because we didn't know. I mean, nobody can predict the future, so we were wondering, is there any legitimacy to any of these mad claims that, Zachariah Sitchin was making about the Anunnaki or Nibiru coming, or all of this sort of stuff in 2012 and the end of the Mayan calendar? I think some part of me can't help thinking, was this an exercise, by the powers that be, to see how the world would react to that kind of information being flooded online? Because now we've got this flat earth crap going around the place and the Mandela effect going around the place, and everyone's getting caught up in it.
They are, and don't you see a pattern emerging?
Yeah.
Don't you see what's happening? It's becoming more evident every day that there are more and more people being sucked into this fear factor. And
it's just fear porn is all it is.
Yeah, and it's actually it's lowering our vibration. We are actually lowering because of that. But do you know what? Sometimes you have to go through this to stand back and just look at the bigger picture. That's what many of us are doing.
Mark, I've come to the conclusion. Listen, I need to go to a break, so do you mind hanging on for a couple of minutes?
Absolutely.
The break's only going to be about 3 minutes, so if you could mute your microphone for a couple of minutes, Mark. I just want to get into this a bit deeper with you, because this is very interesting where we're going with this. So, folks, we'll be back in 2 minutes with Mark Bajerski. Talk to you then.
Broadcasting to Lucan, this is Liffey Sound, 96.4 FM.
Now, folks, you're very welcome back. Mark, you still with me?
I certainly
That's
am.
brilliant. Now, what I was about to say to you there, sorry I had to run to those ads. I was supposed to play them at 20 past, but it was 22 minutes past, so I'll get them out of the way real quick. What I was going to say to you there, in relation to all this, Mandela effect, flat earth stuff, all this alien invasion stuff that's flooding the internet and whatnot, and has been for the last few years, I think, like, they're distractions, and I think they're thrown up there by the powers that be, most of them anyway. So, most people who are awake, I think it's to get most people who are awake to look at that and not look at what's really going on.
Exactly. I can't disagree with it at all.
No.
I'm after the 10 years of working and seeing what's going on around me, I definitely believe that there are these distractions thrown at us all the time. There's always something new coming up. Always.
But my philosophy, the way I've come to look at it, because like yourself, I've had my awakening, if you want to call it that. I wouldn't even put a title on it. But I went through a very bad patch many, many years ago, and that sort of woke me up, literally woke me up. But I've always been awake, and I think anyone who sort of is awake have always been awake. Some of them probably just didn't realise it. But, I used to have what you had when you were saying like that. You were looking at this stuff 10 years ago and you'd be getting worried about it, thinking, is this going to happen? Is that going to happen? 2012, all this online rubbish and whatnot. And it eats you up. Because if you think something bad is going to happen, you feel duty bound to inform people of it. And the more people you tell them, the crazier you appear to them, until they actually do see it for what it actually is then. But I've learned the hard way just to look at all these situations, even personal situations that I'm going through right now and that I've gone through. I've got to the stage now where I look at it and just say to myself, it is what it is.
Yeah.
You know, don't try and make it something else. Don't try and change it if you can't. You know, just you have to change your own perception of it and your own reaction to it.
Yeah, because your perception of it changes everything. Your actions, your energy, the way you see things, the way you decide your choice in life, that determines your whole being. It determines everything around you, everybody around you, and thus changing the whole of your world. I mean, my world is beautiful now. Some people would say I live in a bubble or a pink fluffy cloud, but prior to this 10 years, I lived like a man who just chased his tail, who saw nothing but worry and fear, and lived in that because a very clever system made it that way, and many people live that way from day to day. We are subjected to working 9 to 5 to pay the mortgage. Can you imagine if we didn't have a mortgage? That we didn't have to work 9 to 5, just that alone would change the vibration of the world instantly. So, the system is very clever. It wants you to keep paying into this machine that keeps fueling. And unfortunately, the golden sort of egg is normally for the people at the very top who make the machine to begin with. And that's kind of like how I see it now. And I don't get involved in issue. I don't get involved with being pulled into this kind of illusion that we have to do this and then we have to get angry and we have to point fingers and we have to do this to make a difference and to make a change. I don't believe that at all. I think the change is made within us, and thus we turn into a lighthouse, and from that moment on people see that and then choose to be a lighthouse. And I think that's what we're doing. We're all shining now, and I think the world is becoming brighter every day. Yes, it is becoming brighter, and thus we see more of the darkness. It appears more because we're shining bright. But you know what? There is hope, and there really, really is. For me, there is a huge shift at the moment, and I see every day. I meet people who I would have never, ever would have dreamed would be speaking about things which they do now. And that's beautiful because the awakening is happening. We are at a good time, my friend.
I think we are, yeah. I have a very positive feeling about the future, despite all the crap that's going on in the world. You know, the wars in the Middle East, the American election, just to paraphrase, the nuttiness of the world, as we say it today. One thing I've noticed, that one thing I've been looking at lately is, and I don't know if you're aware of this, but there's a guy called Elon Musk, and he's the owner of Tesla Motors, and he's trying to change the world, the world of energy and stuff like that. Now, one thing I do know about the universe is that I'm quite satisfied is, most probably a fact is, that we're all energy. Everything in the universe is energy. It's like Bill Hicks says, the universe is just one consciousness having a subjective experience. And I'm sure you know the rest of that everything's an illusion, and we're just the imagination of ourselves. And I sort of get that. And this sort of ties in with what Elon Musk has been talking about a lot lately online. And he has this theory that human civilization will become so advanced that we would end up running ancestor simulations of ourselves. And he said if this is the case, the chances that we're living in a simulation right now are more probable than not. Now, I don't know how you feel about that. This sort of all ties in with what you talk about, with energy healing and all that stuff. Is it what you do, like this energy healing, are you hacking into the matrix, so to speak?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the thing with my kind of work is if you don't see it, it doesn't exist. And this is it's very, very difficult to share that very truth with other people, unless, of course, you've been through something so dramatic and you don't know where else to turn, and you come to a pure energy healer, and then they basically re-engineer you. They clear away all the stuff that's attached to you, all the bad energy, we call it, the dirty energy from the computers, and then they get up and they say, my God, I don't know what's just happened there, but I feel peace again. I feel me again. And thus we are changing the world. We are seeing that, and more healers are growing. The world is growing. We are becoming more awakened and more aware to energy than we ever have done. So there is a positive shift. I'm not. For me, I don't really look too deep into where the world is going and whether it is all just the Matrix. Do you know what? I work on one person at a time. So when you're in the town and you meet somebody, you sit with them, you have a drink with them, you talk to them, you explain how you feel, what you feel is going on in the world, and you exchange energies. That's how it works. And then they will say, okay, that's great. And they'll go away and they'll ponder that, or should I say, the energy then will start to filter into them. And once they've got that truth energy, then they become awakened. So like I said, I always talk about energy healing as lighthouses. If somebody sees that, then it's the first time they've ever felt something so powerful. Then they hold on to that, and it's an awakening.
Well, I've always noticed that if you do something kind for someone, just even a random stranger, like I was walking across a bridge the other day and I seen a guy, he was sitting there with a cup in his hand, and I had about $2.50 in my pocket, and I stuck it into the cup. I didn't need it, so I stuck it into his cup. But I got a warm fuzzy feeling with myself. You know, it was fair play to you. You know, you gave the guy. I could have spent it on coffee, but I didn't. I gave it to this homeless guy.
That's your answer. That's your answer. Now that just in itself was an action, and that action was positive.
Now, what I did do was...
That came from your heart, and it was actually very natural.
Now, can I say... If I could just mention, sorry for interrupting, what I wanted to say was, I can remember exactly what I was thinking at that moment, right? Mm-hmm. As I was walking towards him, I'd said to myself, I knew I had the money in my pocket, will I give it to him? And almost instantly, I came up with another excuse in my mind not to give it to him. Right. And then I said to myself, now hang on a minute, Mick, don't do that. Go with your first thought, and I gave it to him. Now, I don't know if that makes any sense to you, but I can remember thinking exactly like that.
Well, you've got to understand that we're all on different levels. So, there's the guru energy is very diverse to me. Whenever I speak to certain gurus, one guru would say, well, Mark, one of the questions I would ask is it right to walk past somebody who is on the street and put money into a cup? Their answer would be, well, if you bend down and place €5 into that cup, the person on the floor would maybe say, this is great, I might as well stay here because people are just filling my cup, which means that they may not get up and do something for themselves. Now, every circumstance is different. You can sit with somebody who has had a very interesting life, and then everything went wrong. The wife died, the family rejected him, so then he turned to drink because of his pain and suffering, and then ended up on the street. So every circumstance is different. So for me, I've stopped this judging now. It's gone. Whatever feels right at that given moment, I will do.
That's your gut instinct.
The heart that gives is always full. So when I'm giving, and I like to give as often as I can out of love, and nothing I don't want anything in return. I do it because it makes me feel better as a soul, and it just feels natural. That's all.
And there's nothing wrong, I suppose, with doing what's right as opposed to doing what you think you should do. You do what feels right.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, there's no such thing as right or wrong. You just, well, of course, if you take a hammer and smash somebody over the head with it, of course it's wrong. But what I mean is, in general, there is no such thing as right and wrong. It's just we're just living this kind of life where we're experiencing what feels right at any given moment. So this time last year, what I felt was right isn't right anymore. But was it right then, or was it wrong then? Everything changes within our belief system because of what we've been through at any given moment. And we should respect that. We should respect everybody's belief system. We shouldn't interfere. We shouldn't push. We shouldn't poke. We shouldn't tell them what they should and shouldn't do. However, there's nothing wrong with sharing your story with other people if they want to hear. And I think that's great. So many people make the mistake that force, push, force, tell you what you should listen to me, do this, do that. I don't believe in that. I think that's wrong. For me, there's a higher consciousness, and that is when people are ready, they'll find you and they'll listen. And when they're ready, they'll open up, and that's it.
Now, can I ask you, I just want to bring you back a little bit in time when you were growing up in Huddersfield and stuff like that, because you come across to me as probably one of the most positive people I've ever spoke to, and it's great, it's wonderful to hear it, you know, the kind of stuff that you're talking about. You know, Huddersfield, I'd imagine, was probably similar in ways to growing up in Dublin. You know, it was working class, it was a hard way to grow up back in the 70s and the 80s and the early 90s and stuff like that. You know, what was your life like growing up? Was there a lot of negativity in your life, and what turned you around?
No, not really. I would never have said that as a kid. You know, you'd got huge negativity. I mean, you know, I disliked school. That was one thing. But I spent most of my time in a park playing football and like kids do, messing about and, you know, fishing and doing all the stuff that kids
should do. Yeah.
So really life was okay. It wasn't bad. You know, home life was slightly different because my father was quite abusive. So there was a lot of fear within the home and abuse. So, but I think as kids, you kind of get on with it, you know, and I think that was it really. I mean, my whole life was always about loving and being kind to people. I'd never liked to have a scrap, never liked to fight. It broke my heart to see my best friends hitting each other over the silliest things. I never really truly understood anger and people wanting to hurt each other. I never got it because I always thought if two friends were friends, then they'd just love each other.
Yeah, it's the same here. I feel the exact same way myself. I always have done.
And that springs forward with me every day. I mean, I don't understand why people want to hurt each other, and it breaks my heart when I see people fight over belief system and over Trump or whoever it may be. I just want to sometimes say, can't you see what is happening, what this system is doing, how it's pulling you to hate, how it's pulling you to be separate? And, you know, for me, I have a saying, and I dream of a world without politics.
Don't we all? Listen, I'm going to go to my last set of ads, Mark. Do you mind muting for another couple of minutes?
Certainly.
That'd be brilliant. And when we come back, I want to discuss the upcoming event in February in Waterford that you're going to be attending, and there's one other little interesting subject as well I want to run past you on behalf of one of my listeners. So folks, we'll be back in 2 minutes with the wonderful Mark Bajerski. Talk to us very soon.
Broadcasting to Lucan, this is Liffey Sound, 96.4 FM.
Now folks, you're very welcome back. Mark, hello. Are you still with me?
I am.
You are indeed, that's brilliant. And what I want to talk about now, just briefly, is I had a message earlier on off one of my listeners, I'm sure he's one of your friends on Facebook, is Danny Jacob. And he sent me a message and he asked me to ask you a question about 1111. Now that's something that resonates with me because I see the numbers 1111 everywhere. I see it on posters and on clocks and it always pops up. And I have looked online about 1111, what's the meaning behind it. And the best answer I can come up with is that it's usually attributed to awakened people like yourself, people like myself, people like Danny Jacob, but anybody else who is awake to what's actually going on in the world. And for some reason, they tend to see the number 1111. Do you have any thoughts on that and what it might be, or is it nothing at all?
To be honest, I couldn't give you an answer because it's not something I look at. I tell you what I do look at. When people come to the academy to learn all about energy and learn how to see energy, what happens is you become more aware of what's called the signs. And the signs are always there, but we seem to spend most of our time focused on the wrong energy. So being open, and once you become aware, then the signs appear far greater. Now, me talking about 1111, yeah, that's a sign, but so is a feather, and so is synchronicity. So is a book that you open and read a certain line within that book, and it resonates so strong, and you don't know why. These are all what I believe is given signs to help us awaken and to understand or to try and see what that means. We are all psychic. We are all intuitive. We all have amazing power within ourselves. What really saddens me so much is when people come here and have lost their faith in life, in themselves, because I see so much power in people. And when you can resonate at that level and realize that you are something very unique, and your gifts of sight, your gifts of intuition is so powerful, once you become awakened to that, everything changes. And then all of a sudden, my God, you just start to see things happening in front of you. And I spent 3 years of the awakening back 10 years ago. And I get a little bit sad now because I'm too busy doing other things, helping people awaken, or to show them their signs, and for them to say, oh my God, I never saw that. And now I don't see what I used to see. I used to walk past lampposts and the lights used to go on. My wife used to be sat next to me in bed, and we'd jump up at 3 o'clock in the morning, and then the little side table would shoot across the room. And this is energy, and many unusual things used to happen to me, and that's called the awakening within ourselves. That's the power. And I don't know if you know what that means, but it's the moment when you realize that all is possible. I
just want to mention something really quick, because I want to move on to the conference now in a couple of minutes and talk about that before the end of the show. But this was something that happened to me many years ago. I think at the beginning of my awakening process, I was actually a doorman. I was a bouncer, believe it or not, even though I'm only 5'6". I was a bouncer for 3 years on a pub. I was an unintentional bouncer. I was never meant to be, but I just sort of fell into it and ended up doing it for 3 years.
Did you know that a lot of bouncers have very high intuition, and they can spot a fight or problems? Or
I used to be able to spot fights in the pub, and I'd calm the situation down straight away. And I kid you not, for the 3 years I'd done this pub, and there was a few rough types used to drink in it, there was never a fight in the pub the whole 3 years I was there. Never. And when I stopped doing it then, there was fighting every Saturday night, but that had nothing to do with me.
You know why that is? Because of your energy.
I think it was, and someone said it to me, and here's where I'm going with this. One night then, a woman, I was going through a lot of crap at the time, like we all go through our own difficulties in life, you know, everyone's fighting their own battles nobody knows anything about. But this woman walked up to me and she looked at me and she says, God, you've got a lot of anger in you. And I looked and said, sure, doesn't everybody? You know, the world's a bloody shithole, what do you expect? No, she said, no, yours is a particular type, you know. And she said, I'd like to talk to you in the future about it. I said, yeah, no problem. She went in and went about her business, had her drinks. But I met up with her a few weeks later, and she sort of done a reading on me. She was sort of similar to yourself. She said she was a healer and stuff like that, and I was very sceptical of it now, you know. But I went up and had a cup of tea, and all I done was have a chat with her. And when I was leaving, she said, you have a sister that drives a white car, don't you? And I said, yeah. I says, why? I says, no, just saying something. She says, tell her to keep her eye on the lights. And I says, all right, fair enough. I says, why are you telling me this? She says, well, I'm getting an energy off you, she said, and I have a funny feeling that you're going to go out onto a stage to reveal your message. And at the time, I hadn't got a bloody clue what she was talking about. Doing the radio now sort of makes sense. It's coincidence, synchronicity, I don't know. But I didn't believe her, and I went away sceptical about it. And a week later, I said it to my sister. I just mentioned it to her in passing, and that was grand. A couple of days after that, she rang me screaming down the phone, who's that woman? What's her name? I said, it doesn't matter. I said, you don't know her. And I said, I don't know her surname anyway, I only got her first name. I said, I'm not going to even tell you where she lives, I said, because it's not important. I said, why, what's the problem? And she says, me fella, a boyfriend at the time, Ian, he said, he was out in the car, he came home, parked the car up, and got up the next morning, the battery was dead. And I said, well, what's that got to do with anything? He said, no, I just left the lights on, because you told me about the lights, what your woman had said. I said, well, it's a coincidence. But I've since learned to believe there's no such thing as a coincidence. I don't believe in it anymore. Everything to me is just synchronistic.
Yeah, well, if and when you ever start to go down the path of realising that we all have this gift, this inner sight within, you start to, especially with my life, I started becoming more confident in the fact that, you know, there is something in this, there really is. And I can give you 1,000 for instances, because I've read for thousands of people. But one, for instance, we're talking about a car. I read for a chap once who is very famous in LA, and I was on Skype, and I just said, there's the black car here, there's a black car, and he said, no, and I said, well, there is, I can see it, and I said, just check the brakes. Anyway, 3 months, 4 months later, he came, hey brother, he says, I can't believe it, I bought a black Porsche. And he said, and I remember the words that you said. He said, so instead of me driving it, I sent it straight to the garage, and they lifted it up and they saw that all the pipes had corroded, and they said to him that if he'd have driven that car, he would have been dead.
There you go. You know, people, some people will be sceptical about what you just said. You know, me playing devil's advocate here now, they'd say that's just BS. But I don't think it is. I think if there's an energy there, and you do give off an energy, and I'm going to tell you how I know this, right? And believe me if you want, if anyone listening doesn't want to believe it, I don't really care. But I'm going to tell you this anyway. I only looked at your website for the first time this morning. Now, I got your details off Trevor Evers, and fair play to Trevor for setting this up. I had a bit of negative news this morning. I'm not going to get into it, but something that seriously pissed me off. And I went home in the horrors, literally in the horrors. And I said to myself, I need to promote this show. So I went online and typed up the promotion, posted it. But I went onto your website then. And I kid you not, I just had a quick peruse around your website and I got a burst of energy off it. That's all I can say, because within 2 seconds I was in a good mood. And I'm still in a good mood.
That's beautiful.
You know, so I don't know if just... It was a few of the words that I read on it, some of the things you said. I can't even remember what it was that you said. Yeah, but when I read it, it resonated with me.
About picking a book up and just something resonates. And words are healing. You know, they're not just words. They're a vibration. They're an energy. Yeah. And you can read some words and it can lift you up. And you can actually read some words and it can rip you in shreds. I knew a dark man once who was very, very dark in the arts, and he did something what's called keywords. And I asked him, what's that? He says, well, keywords are words that I can pick out in your life, and I can make you feel very, very bad. And as true to his word, I was told by a friend that, you know, somebody had upset him and he said a few key words to this guy and the guy threw up. He was just sick in front of him. He just couldn't help himself because of whatever he said, which were key words. So we have the ability to be good and we have the ability to be not so good. So my life is key words, but in positivity. I want to help people become happy. I don't believe that any of us should be living in pain and suffering. I believe the system makes us that way. Yeah, if there wasn't the system in place that there is now, I believe most of us would be living in happiness. We wouldn't think about wanting to hurt ourselves or saying, you know what, it's better me leaving this world because my children will be better without me. All of these things, and they are there because of a system that is so dark.
Do you know what I think is the problem? And this is just my own intuition, and this is the only words I can use to describe what I'm about to talk about. I think the reason people are afraid to the reason there's not as much love in the world, and don't get me wrong, it's out there, I know it's out there, I mean, people like yourself is a testament to that, but I think people are embarrassed to speak the way you do. Does that make sense to you?
I cannot wait to get to this open mind conference, because they're going to have such a shock when I stand on that stage and start talking to them and start making them do things that they would never do in a lifetime. This is going to be fun. Let me tell you something. People walk through this door of the academy and they don't even know why they come. Big fellas, big fellas with big and strong, and they don't know what they're doing. And you know what? The end of 4 days of being here working alongside everybody else and me, they can't wait to give me a cuddle when they walk on the last day, and they can't wait to cuddle everybody else, because deep inside every one of us, we have the greatest of love.
Yeah, that's no doubt about it. Absolutely no doubt about that.
Yeah, that we are love. And when you say that, people say, what's he talking about? Well, I tell you what, it is the most healing energy in your world if you can just embrace somebody, listen to them, give them a cuddle, support them, and that energy comes back right at you. If you are good to somebody, if you are kind and you listen to them, you will normally find the answer to help that person. All of us has the answer to help other people, and they say, yeah, but we can't really help ourselves, and in truth, we do it to ourselves. But actually, when we're with somebody and we're sharing that energy, sometimes we think, my God, that all these words that are coming out, they're for me as well. And sometimes we can hear ourselves talking, and we really need that same, I call it channeling.
I read a book a couple of years back. I sort of stumbled across it. I got these 3 books originally called A Conversation with God by a gentleman called Neil Donald Walsh.
Yeah, it's
amazing. Like, completely blew the socks off me. The hairs were standing up the back of my neck reading those books. But that sort of followed on to another book that I was reading called The Celestine Prophecy. Now, it was a work of fiction, but it was sort of based loosely on fact, on scientific fact in relation to energy and stuff like that. But one thing I learned from that book was, and I think this is why I have a good relationship with my partner now as opposed to what I did before I read this book. But one thing I learned from reading that book was that if you're arguing with somebody, you're sucking the energy out of each other. You literally are sucking the energy off each other.
Yeah. And it's awful. It's horrible.
It is. It's rotten.
You know deep down in yourself what you're doing. Yeah. It's awful. It's not good. It isn't healthy. And once you recognise that, then you're one step further to clearing that energy away. But it's ultimately up to you and up to me to be able to say, you know what, I am not going to let that energy affect me and my love or my love of whoever. It is our choice ultimately to live in dark or in light.
Now listen, before we go, it's 5 to 10 now. I've got about 4 minutes left because I do want to finish on a good song, and I think this is an appropriate song for the end of this show. I'm not going to tell you what it is yet. The conference. Talk about the conference.
Well, it is a wonderful opportunity, in my humble opinion, that if anybody is listening tonight, that I believe in synchronicity, and you've been brought here for these words, and that is that over the 2 days of the Open Minds Conference, which is on the 25th and 26th of February, I believe the talkers, the speakers, and the energy in this beautiful hotel will certainly awaken you as well as me. It will help us on our journey to find the confidence, not only to be able to speak to other people with that knowledge, but it will also help you become stronger and to overcome the worry and fear that the system has ingrained us with. So I believe that this is not just a conference. I believe that this is a 2-day healing for your heart and soul. And I believe that the people who are going to attend, the people who are going to be in the audience, it is going to be a mutual energy of great love and awakening.
But I'm going to be there myself now. I'll definitely go to that. I'm not going to miss it.
I mean, I can't wait to be there. It's going to be amazing. And I believe there's only 250 seats available, which means it's a small conference, which means that the energy in there is going to be electric.
It is. The lineup itself is going to be amazing. I mean, we've got Enoch Crane, we've got yourself, we've got Terry Lawton, we've got so many wonderful speakers that are going to be coming on talking about so many different diverse subjects. We've got Tom Ryan talking about personal sovereignty. I mean, you're not going to get this anywhere else.
No, that's why it's such a great opportunity for Ireland. I think it really is the start of so much more. I think this Open Minds Conference could grow very big.
One day, maybe 10 years' time, we'll play Croke Park in front of 80,000 people.
And why not?
And just raise the energy vibration of this country to the roof.
The truth will set us free.
Definitely, yeah. I mean, David, I put it succinctly there when you were talking about love there a few minutes ago, that in this universe, there is only one certainty, and that's love. Everything else is an illusion. And I think he's right.
Absolutely, 100%. Yeah. Cannot disagree with that.
Well, listen, this is the end of the show. Mark, thank you very much for coming on. It's been an absolutely uplifting experience for me. Honestly, you really have. You put me in a great mood tonight.
Yeah,
it's been great having you on.
And you're doing great work. So,
well, listen, hopefully we'll meet up in February when I'm at the conference.
I hope so. I truly do. To give you a cuddle.
Definitely, and I'll get you a pint as well. Well, folks, listen, we're going to end up on a good song. I'm going to play the Eurythmics and The Miracle of Love, because that's what we've been talking about here tonight, love.
Fantastic.
So until next time, Mark, you take care and peace out, man. Peace out. Talk to you very soon.
Bless your heart.
Thank you, and bless you too. Thanks very much.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Folks, that's been Mark Bajerski. Well, what can I say? You can check out his website, markbajerski.com. Absolutely fabulous website. The guy's he's just an air of positivity, so that's what we need more of in the world, you know. Forget all the negative crap. Listen to people like Mark Bajerski and change your life. Folks, this has been The World You Don't Know. So until next week, remember, the world is full of great people, and if you can't find one, be one. Talk to you all very soon.
To 10 p.m. Monday night on Liffey Sounds. The world you don't know. The world you don't know. 9 to 10 p.m., Monday night on Liffey Sounds.